World leaders, 4 Republican senators, and former President George W. Bush are among those that have congratulated President-elect Joe Biden on his victory Saturday. But President Trump and some of his staunchest supporters say they are launching legal challenges and that the election outcome is still in doubt. Without specific evidence of widespread fraud, those claims appear at this point to be little more than political messaging strategy, one that Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell echoed on that chamber's floor today.
In the United States of America, all legal ballots must be counted. Any illegal ballots must not be counted. The process should be transparent or observable by all sides, and the courts are here to work through concerns.
Joining us now with more are Michael Kang, professor at the Northwestern University Pritzker School of Law, and Joseph Morris, partner at the law firm Morris De La Rosa and a former assistant attorney general and director of the Justice Department Office of Liaison Service under President Ronald Reagan. Welcome both of you to Chicago tonight. Joe Morris, are you seeing any credible evidence anywhere of some kind of widespread fraud that would change the outcome of the election?
Well, fraud is not the only issue. Yeah, there's some evidence of fraud, but there are other issues too, which are simply getting a correct count. This is one of the closest elections in American presidential history, with one of the hugest outcomes, one of the hugest turnouts. And we have a situation where in 4 key turnover states, battleground states right now, 85,000 votes separate President Trump and Vice President Biden in the aggregate. When you have a vote that is that close, every vote matters. Making sure that every legal vote, as Senator McConnell said, is counted, and every unlawful vote, every vote that was unlawfully cast is excluded, is absolutely imperative. And this is a situation where our country should be grateful for having the Electoral College, because at least under these circumstances, the need to canvass and, if necessary, recount carefully things that have not yet been done are cabined to these 6 battleground states.
And Michael
But
Kang,
for the
if you
Electoral
look,
College, we would be trying to count all this popular vote in every single precinct across the land.
Michael Kang, if you look at some of the lawsuits or threats of lawsuits that have been brought so far, do any of them have legal merit to you?
Well, so far, I think the question at this point is whether a recount or post-election litigation would change the outcome. And I guess I'm a little skeptical about that. But at least the claims that have been brought so far seem to be pretty small-scale claims that don't really affect that many votes, or large-scale claims where there hasn't been much substantiation. So we should check out all the credible allegations of fraud. That's part of what this process is about. But right now, from the information we have right now, it seems hard to imagine that it would overturn the initial count, the election outcomes that we expect.
And Joe Morris, one of the complaints being brought is in Pennsylvania, where a swing state, obviously, where the Trump campaign wants to isolate mail-in ballots that came in 3 days after the election but postmarked on the election. Even though the Supreme Court ruled those would count, now the Supreme Court's saying they need to be sort of segregated pending whatever litigation. It wouldn't really change the outcome, so what's the point of that lawsuit?
Well, it may very well change the outcome. Arithmetically, it could change the outcome.
No, there aren't enough in those ballots that would change the outcome.
Well, the numbers will tell the tale. The arithmetic will tell the tale in the end. If they don't, they don't. If they do, they do. And the important thing is to find out what the facts are. We are in a fact-gathering process right now. No election authority has yet pronounced what the outcome of any of these elections were. No Board of Elections, no county clerk, no Secretary of State has certified voting results. We're still in the process of initial counts. Recounts have not yet begun. We've not yet done the official canvasses. What matters is not what was declared on Saturday by the Associated Press. What matters is what happened Tuesday and in the run-up to Tuesday. The Pennsylvania case is a perfectly serious case in terms of both substantive legal issues and the facts of the matter. The U.S. Supreme Court's order segregating those ballots in order to let the numbers be counted and determine whether or not they make a difference is one of the crucial victories that the Trump people have had up to this point. Certainly they're behind the 8 ball, there's no doubt about that. But every vote should be counted.
Well, you're saying some of those mail-ins should not be counted. Michael Kang, what about the claim that, election observers in the Republican Party were not allowed to stand close enough to the count due to social distancing measures? What about those claims?
Yeah, so state law usually requires that representatives of both sides, both major parties, get to observe the vote counting process. As I understand it, representatives from both parties were in the building. There was some dispute about whether they had enough of a perspective or whether they could observe close enough. So at least in one instance, the court allowed observers to get a little bit closer, from I think 10 feet to 6 feet, so they could watch more closely. It didn't. I doubt that it affected the vote count, but it's part of the transparency that state law requires, and we should have.
Joe Morris, in Georgia, another swing state, the vote margin's about 0.21%. Tell us how a recount would work.
Well, once the Georgia authorities determine what the initial count is, then a recount would be ordered. Sometimes recounts are done by sampling, that is, rather than counting every ballot in every precinct and so forth. Random samples, in effect, are taken to see what difference it makes. If it doesn't seem to make a difference, you stop the process. If it seems to make a difference, you expand the process until you find out what the result actually was.
So we have these various legal processes. Michael Kang, should they not work out, what is the president legally obligated to do? He has not conceded. We don't know if he will concede the election. So what are his legal obligations after that?
President Trump has no obligation to concede the election. He has a right to ask for recounts where state law allows it. Sometimes it's automatic, sometimes it's by request. He can bring these legal challenges where he thinks that there's credible evidence of that. His lawyers will bring that. He doesn't have a legal obligation to concede the election even after that point, but the legal process will take place. So courts and the election machinery in each state and Congress eventually will certify the next president of the United States. It's not President Trump's job to agree with it or disagree with it. It's beyond his control at this point.
Joe Morris, there's some talk that some state legislatures, for instance, Pennsylvania, might not seat the delegates, the Electoral College delegates that represent the way the vote in that state went. Do you think that might happen?
I'm sorry, Paris. I don't know what you're talking about. I know
That
the role of the state legislators.
Say the legislature in Pennsylvania might not send the Biden Electoral College members might not send that to be certified.
Well, it's not the decision of the state legislature in Pennsylvania. There are slates of electors who are on the ballot. One slate or the other was elected. It's up to the certifying officials to determine which slate was elected. I think in Pennsylvania, the final certification is done by the Secretary of State, subject, of course, to judicial review. When, at the end of the process, the electoral votes are taken in the state capitals, usually that happens in December. The votes are then transmitted to the Senate, and they're counted in the first week of January, openly, publicly in the Senate. That's when we have an official certification of who the President of the United States is. And I assure you, every Constitution hugger in the land will insist that the winner of the Electoral College vote, whoever it is, whether it's Joe Biden or Donald Trump, be entitled to take the oath of office on January 20th.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Our thanks to Michael Kang and Joseph Morris. Thanks for joining us.